Hello everyone! Last week we did the first part of Muradin's storyline, in which we talked about his time with the Alliance of Lordaeron, training Arthas, all the way to the moment where Arthas picked up Frostmourne, claiming that he would pay any price, and that price turned out to be his longtime friend Muradin. Arthas tried to heal Muradin, but the whispers of Frostmourne convinced him to leave the dwarf behind, that he was on the right path. He got his revenge by striking down Mal'Ganis, and he followed his journey of summoning the Legion and merging with Ner'zhul. Now known as the Lich King, Arthas sits upon his frozen throne in Northrend, but Muradin's story isn't quite done yet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's find out what exactly happened to Muradin. I hope you'll enjoy. It seemed like Muradin's life was the great price Arthas had to pay to claim Frostmourne, but the dwarf actually survived the events in the cave and he woke up with the biggest headache ever, no memory of who he was or where he was. This is explained as we quest during Wrath of the Lich King, where we're sent on a mission to find and help Muradin Bronzebeard with getting his hands on Norgannon's keystone and access to the archives within Ulduar. During the questline, we're asked to gain King Yorick Stormheart's aid, but King Yorick Stormheart, he does not trust us immediately. First we have to prove ourselves in battle, and as we travel to our challenge, Valok Icebellow explains how Stormheart became their king. Years back, my father and several other Frostborn were returning from a trek across Dragonblight. There was a heavy blizzard, far worse than we've ever seen since. They crossed the trail of blood-soaked snow, followed it to a dwarf wandering and speaking in a dialect they couldn't make out. And not a dwarf of our kind, mind you, but a mountain dwarf. Something our kind had not seen before. The dwarf seemed lost, having no memory of where he came from, or even his own name. Not being the kind to leave a dwarven cousin to die in the snow, my father's party, they took him in and they continued back towards Frosthold. Not long later, out of nowhere, the snow burst before them, and a Jormungandr the size of Varanus herself came down upon their party. One of them was swallowed whole before they had even time to react. My father thought that they were all doomed, but behind him a furious roar rumbled across the snow, and he turned to see the mountain dwarf growing in his size, his skin taking on stone-like texture, and his hands sizzling with lightning. The dwarf battled forward with a sound like rolling thunder and hurled a shining metal hammer, lightning coursing over its surface directly into the Jormungr's throat. The Jormungandr collapsed instantly, its head barely still attached to its convulsing body. My father turned to the dwarf in awe and raised a fist in praise. The stranger, having no name of his own, my father deemed Yorick, a name reserved for the champions of legend. Years later, he now stands before us as Yorick Stormheart, King of the Frostborn. As we follow the questline, as we gain King Stormheart's trust and we find what Brann was looking for, he decides it's time to meet the king himself and thank him in person. To Brann's shock and surprise, King Stormheart is actually his brother Muradin, long believed to be dead. Memories start flooding back to Muradin as even his oldest brother Magni shows up. Magni was informed that Muradin is Northrend by a seer, so he shows up. Muradin tries to remember his life before he joined the Frostborn, and all he remembers are nightmares. Nightmares of a human, tall, light hair, death black armor, Arthas. Muradin feels responsible for letting Arthas slip to the dark side like that without really doing anything about it. Regrets won't change a thing though, only actions can make things right, so Muradin decides to join the Arsen's crusade as they assault Icecrown, while Brann goes to party in Ulduar and Magni returns home. In Icecrown, they find out that Bolvar Fordragon, a hero of the Alliance that supposedly died at the Wrath Gate, he's actually still alive. The Lich King has been working on torturing his soul, trying to force Bolvar to serve, but Bolvar will never serve.
Never! I will never serve you! Could it be, Lord Fordring? If Bolvar lives, mayhap there is hope for peace between the Alliance and the Horde. We must reach the top of this cursed place and free the Paladin!
By the light, it must be so.
Prepare the Skybreaker for an aerial assault on the Citadel!
With the ship called Skybreaker, Muradin and his troops quickly go out to secure a forward base in Icecrown, but in the air they encounter the Horde, who have a very similar plan. A fierce sky battle follows, with a different winner depending on which faction you play. If you play for the Horde, you'll win as the Horde. If you play for the Alliance, you'll win for the Alliance. But for the sake of the video, I'll assume that Muradin and the Alliance won.
Don't say I didn't warn you, scoundrels! Onward, brothers and sisters!
Their next encounter is with another victim of the Wrathgate, Saurfang's son Drenosh, now turned into a Death Knight.
A lone orc? Against the might of the Alliance? Charge!
With Muradin being choked in the air, heroes take down the servant of the Lich King, and as they do, his father shows up to reclaim the body of his fallen son.
Don't force me hand, Orc. We can't let you pass.
Behind you lies the body of my only son. Nothing will keep me from him.
I can't do it. Get back on your ship and we'll spare your life.
Stand down, Muradin. Let a grieving father pass.
Varian tells Muradin to stand down, and in a great display of respect, they let Cao Feng pick up his son and carry him home. Muradin goes on to secure the deck, prepare soldiers for an assault on the upper citadel, while heroes of the Alliance and Horde, they continue the journey through Icecrown Citadel, they continue the assault, and eventually they bring down the Lich King. Muradin wasn't present in that final confrontation when justice was finally delivered, yet players that defeat the Lich King while holding Shadowmourne, they have the option to loot Arthas' training sword and return it to Muradin.
Oh, lad. How I miss those endless days in Lordaeron. Sharpening your skill with this dull blade. Forging you into a weapon meant to withstand the demands of a great destiny. Heh. You sure put them skills to use, didn't you, lad? If only I'd been able to stop you that day. How different things might have been. If only I'd have never discovered that accursed blade. Farewell, Arthas. My brother.
After the events in Northrend, Muradin's role would shift back from being a fighter to being a politician. Around the time of the Cataclysm, King Magni Bronzebeard, he tried to use an ancient Titan ritual to communicate with the land. This ritual was supposed to give them insight as to what was going on with the world. There were signs of the Cataclysm, they weren't sure what was happening, but instead of communicating with the land, Magni, literally, he became one with the land. As Prince Anduin and several other people watched, crystals engulfed Magni's body. It was clear that Magni was no longer capable of ruling his people, and with grief in their hearts, griffins were sent out to find either Muradin or Brann, but Magni's daughter Moira had other plans in mind. Moira, daughter to Magni, she was kidnapped by the Dark Iron Dwarves, but the ruler, Emperor Fauruzan, he showed Moira the respect that her father never gave her, simply because she was born as a female. Even though Magni always believed that Fauruzan used some sort of spell to keep Moira under control, in truth, she really fell in love with the Emperor and she gave Fauruzan a son. Adventurers were sent to bring the king's daughter back. They killed her husband, father to her child, and Moira was pissed. With the crystallization of her father, Moira decided that it was time for her to return to her city to reclaim her rightful place as ruler of Ironforge. Together with the Dark Iron Dwarfs, she held the city hostage, including Prince Anduin. The Deep Run tram was closed down, the griffins were locked away, and news of this reached Varian Rin. You don't mess around with Varian's family, so together with the members of the SI7, they infiltrated Ironforge, they lifted Moira out of her bed, and Varian was about to bring sweet justice, but his son prevented that. Anduin explained that although Moira's actions were wrong, she was the legitimate heir to the throne. Killing her would just send the city into civil war, possibly dragging the other factions within the Alliance with them, so killing Moira was not the way to go. Varian, with a knife placed against Moira's throat, he saw wisdom in Anduin's words, and he decided that Moira would get a second chance to prove that she was worthy to lead her people. Like him, she had to become better, and she couldn't be trusted to rule alone. So instead, a council was formed. A council where all three clans, Dark Iron, Wildhammer and Bronzebeard, each of them had their own leader representing them. For the Dark Iron Dwarfs, it was obviously Moira who spoke for them. The Bronzebeard clan was represented by Muradin, while the Wildhammer Dwarfs at first were represented by Kurdran Wildhammer. The world had not seen a union like this, the clans living together with Ironforge in over 200 years, and coming together like that did not come without complications. The clans, they did not trust each other, they came from different backgrounds, one like the air, one like the earth, one like the shadows. It was a big mess, and bringing these clans together was a very difficult job. Now, to bring their people closer together, Moira suggested that they should reforge the Hammer of the High King, also known as Modemus' Hammer. An ancient scroll had showed up describing how the hammer had been split up into 3 different pieces after the king passed away, and each clan had one of the pieces of the fragments. Moira and Muradin, they were on board with this plan. They thought it was a good idea, a good symbolic way of reforging the old alliances, but Kurdran, he was not willing to give up his piece of the artifacts. During his time on Outland, as they were fighting demons and orcs, this piece of home gave them hope, reminded them of who they were, and he did not want to give it up. Discussions and debates followed not only amongst the council, also amongst their people, up to the point where the dwarves they simply started to attack each other. After one Bronzebeard dwarf and one Wildhammer dwarf killed each other in a brawl, Kurdran realized that for the sake of his people, he had to give up his artifacts. He felt like he had no choice, so he placed it down and he agreed to their plan. Now throughout the story, they find out that the scroll is actually fake and that their plans are built on lies. But by this point, it doesn't matter. The people of the city, after so many discussions, after so many debates, they believe that this is the truth, that the artifact is real. And to back away from it now would just cause more trouble than to go through with it. Kurdran at this point is just frustrated with the whole situation, with the politics, with the lies, with being trapped in Ironforge. He decides to sit down at the Wildhammer Roost as he thinks about the situation. A small brawl between the Dark Iron Dwarves and members of the Wildhammer clan, Kurdran's clan, was about to erupt. One of the Dark Irons, they tripped over a stray pile of draw straw, sending the keg of beer that he was carrying flying over, spilling on the floor. Like I said, the clans, they had a very hard time adjusting to their new life. And Kurdran, he was planning to defuse the situation. He tried to talk them down to stop this fight from even happening, but the Dark Iron Dwarf spat in his face, and before he knew it, his fist connected with the Dark Iron's head.
A fight! Count me in! Everyone, get in here!
In the brawl that followed, a nearby brazier was knocked over. The embers erupted the spilled alcohol, setting the entire roost ablaze. Water was quickly called for, as they did their best to save their griffins, but Kurdran's longtime friend Skyri, she refused to leave her ex behind. Even with her fellow griffins trying to pick her up, carry her out of the flames, she broke herself loose as she tried to protect her children. Tried as she might, it was no use. Her eggs were boiled, her body was black as smoking. Kurdran was dizzy, and he decided that it was a mistake to have ever come to Ironforge. The city had stripped him of nearly everything he once was, nearly everything that he once knew, but the city had not taken his one piece of the artifacts. He went to steal it back, and as he got it from the chest that they stored it in, he was caught in the act by Moira. A calculated smile was on her face as Kurdran figured out that it was Moira who had forged the documents, manipulated events, kept the rumors within Ironforge going. Kurdran even went as far as to blame her for the fire that took his friend's life, but Moira told him that she had nothing to do with it. As the story was told to her, as the events were recounted, it was Kurdran who threw the first blow. All Moira wanted was Kurdran and the Wildhammers out. They had never been willing to extend a hand of peace to the Dark Iron Dwarves. Their opinion was already fixed when they arrived. It was clouded by old hatreds that they were clinging to, and Moira wanted Kurdran gone. Sweat began pouring down his body. Every breath seemed filled with stagnant heat, not air. Kurdran shoved the scepter through an opening in his chest piece near his arm. With the heirloom hidden, he rushed out of the room and towards the gates of Ironforge as the city stone walls closed in. Kurdran inhaled the frigid air at Ironforge gates deeply. The sweat covering his body chilled in the cold night, and he shivered. In the distance, through a curtain of snowfall, shapes illuminated by light from the open city gates, they were unloading crates from a cart. One of the silhouettes looked up in Kurdran's direction. It trudged through the snow toward him. It was Muradin.
Been looking for you, lad. I cannot say how sorry I was to hear about Skyri. She died like she lived, free of fear, fighting for what was most important, her people and her future.
Her future died with her.
Muradin stood for a moment, silent.
Aye, but I'd rather die for me kin in a fight I know I can win, and not fight at all. I suppose you wouldn't understand much about that there, would you?
Kurdran's eyes narrowed at the affront, but he felt weak after the encounter with Moira.
I been fighting for me kin since the day I set foot in Ironforge.
Don't you mistake stubbornness for bravery. They ain't the same.
You wouldn't understand. You're no different than Moira.
Muradin sighed, and lowered his head.
When you joined the council, I thought to myself, now there's a dwarf who can set the bickering in this city straight. Instead, all you did was make things worse.
Aye, because I had to go at it alone. You greeted me with open arms, but as soon as I made a stand for something I believed in, you turned your back on me.
How many times did I tell you that this business with the hammer wasn't worth fighting over? Stop wasting my breath when it was clear you wouldn't listen to reason.
To the Bronzebeard's credits, Círdan recalled numerous times in the past where Muradin had approached him in private and spoke with him about giving up the Wildhammer scepter. But each of those conversations had seemed more like a personal attack than advice.
Don't you see, lad? That old piece of iron is a shackle holding you back. Holding this whole city back. The more you argue about it, the tighter it becomes.
And what if I didn't go through with the reforging tomorrow?
Círdan blurted out. As the words left his mouth, he felt the scepter hidden beneath his armor dig into his ribs. Muradin's brow furrowed. He looked at Círdan with disdain.
Magni enjoyed the tales of your fighting with Skyri in Outland. I'm only happy that he isn't here to see the fool you really are.
Círdan had considered telling Muradin about his confrontation with Moira. Now though, he wondered if Muradin had colluded with Magni's daughter. Yet there was an air of forthrightness to Muradin that lessened Círdan's fears. In a way that made the Bronzebeard's words all the more painful to hear.
That scepter kept the heart of my clan alive in Outland.
The heart of your clan is in you. It was in Skyri. And it's seen all those Wildhammers in the city, suffering every moment that you keep arguing. I'm trying to move this city forward, not bring it down with nonsense about old iron.
Move forward? The hammer wasn't the right way to move forward when we thought it was real. And it sure isn't the right way now that we know it's a lie.
Muradin took a deep breath and placed his hand on Círdan's shoulder.
Just let it go, lad. Nothing good comes without sacrifice. You know that more than any of us.
Is that the reason you were looking for me? To tell me how to run my clan?
Muradin's face became twisted in anger. He glanced back at the shadowy forms working in the night. The other dwarves continued unloading crates, oblivious to Muradin and Círdan. When the Bronzebeard turned back, he whipped his right hand in Círdan's face, knocking the Wildhammer back.
Nay, lad. Just wanted to see for myself where the line between fact and fiction lay.
Muradin was already on his way back to the carts by the time that the shock of the blow had worn off. Círdan simply stood at the gates, staring into the dark of the night. Muradin smacked some sense into Círdan. All at once he felt foolish for taking the scepter from the high seats. What did he intend to do with it? Leave the city and forsake his duties as a member of the council? Tarnishing not only his own honor, but that of Falstead and the rest of his clan as well? A moment later, one of his clan members showed up with some good news. One of the griffins had been able to save one of Skyri's eggs from the fire. Hesitantly, he placed his palm on the egg. It was somehow warm, but the sensation was altogether different than the stifling heat of Ironforge. The warmth coursed through Círdan's veins and made him feel as though he were standing under the blue skies of the hinterlands, bathed in the light of the sun. In that moment, everything became clear. He knew what he had to do, regardless of the consequences, to honor King Magni and fulfill his own duties as a member of the Council of Three Hammers. The brilliant plan that Círdan came up with was to show up at the ceremony of reforging, where Moira explained to the crowd that there was a thief who had stolen a piece of the artifacts. Círdan stepped up to the plate. He told all present that it was he that had taken it, and Muradin asked if he had gone mad. He was going to start a riot. Círdan had not gone mad though. He told them all that it was foolish to reforge this weapon as a symbol of the current union, to try to get back the Ironforge of their ancestors. This is a new Ironforge. It will never be the one of the past, and reforging Monimus' hammer surely will not change that. He slammed his artifact down, and with his mighty storm hammer, he shattered it. The heirloom exploded in a shout of iron shards. The dwarves in the crowd, they froze in sudden bewilderment. Confusion rippled across their faces. The new Ironforge begins here. Ask yourselves, do you want to start it by putting this hammer back together, so that one day it can be broken again? The Wildhammers have chosen to take a step forward, not back. Who among you is with us. Muradin was the first to join him as he smashed his own peace, and even Moira was forced to join them, shattering the lie and breaking the way for a new future for all clans. At the end of the story, Círdan decides that his place is not with the council. It truly never was. He apologized to Falstad for taking the position in the first place. Falstad had led their people for 20 years as Círdan spent his time in Outland. The Dark Portal reopened, Círdan showed up again from Outland, he brashly took over as if all those years of service meant nothing. Círdan passed on leadership to Falstad as he was supposed to, and he would now follow his own destiny. As Falstad, he joined Moira and Muradin on the council. This change to the council and the shattering of the planned ritual was but one of the many obstacles that the three dwarven leaders faced, as Lorewalker Cho explained during Mist of Pandaria.
Once upon a time, moments ago in fact, a great king sought help from a trio of powerful dwarves, the Council of Three Hammers. The king's scouts had discovered that Zandalari trolls threatened the dwarven capital. Surely, the king thought, if he helped them with their troll problem, they would give him more troops for his campaign against the Horde. But what the king did not realize is that the dwarves did not trust one another. "We cannot help you," said the Bronzebeard dwarf, "for if we turn our back on the Dark Irons, they will defeat the Wildhammer and take over Ironforge." "We cannot help you," said the Wildhammer dwarf, "for if we turn our back on the Dark Irons, they will defeat the Bronzebeard and take over Ironforge." Oh, the king was furious. "If none of you help, then Ironforge will fall under siege." Only one dwarf offered to help the king. "We will lend you our strength," said Moira of the Dark Iron. "We will trust our dwarven brothers, and we will show them what loyalty means." And so Moira and the High King set out into the snow to save the city, leaving the others to think about their actions. What happens next? I must know.
Muradin and Falstad, they still don't trust Moira and the Dark Iron Dwarves, but Moira is dedicated to proving the worth of not only herself, but also her clan. She wants to carve out a future for her people and her son that will one day rule her people, so she decides to show the right way and join Varian on his mission.
It's heartening to see you here, Moira. You have my thanks.
Indeed. With the aid of your champions, the Dark Irons will put an end to the Zandalari threat in Dunmarrow. We will prove our loyalty to the Council, Ironforge, and the Alliance here today, and with our own blood. The storm has ended. Forward, Dark Irons! To battle we march!
Well fought. I see the Dark Irons are as formidable as ever.
That they are, King Varian. And at the service of the Alliance, I might add.
For that I'm glad. The Bronzebeards and Wildhammers will regret not having been here to share in your glory.
Better they're grateful for the clansmen spared death on this miserable hillock. We sought to protect and impress, not to shame.
Well, you've done just that. Come, let us return to Ironforge and announce your victory to the Council.
The High King, his champions, and the Dark Iron Dwarves worked together to save Ironforge. The other dwarven leaders were ashamed of their behavior and vowed never again to allow fear or distrust to cloud their judgment. And so it was a human king who helped to unite the dwarven clans so long divided. Free to trust one another, all three dwarven leaders pledged their full strength to the Alliance cause.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much the end of Muradin's story. He does show up here and there, like he met with Lily Stormstout in the story Quest for Pandaria. He was present during Garrus's trial in Pandaria in the novel War Crimes. He shows up at the Alliance garrison to offer quests during Warlords of Draenor, but the real story, the real events that he took place in, they end here. at least for the moment. Time will tell where Muradin's path may lead him. The council is coming closer together, but old hatreds die very hard, and some speculate that Magni Bronzebeard might return in the next expansion. If that is truly the case, what will happen between Moira and her father, between Muradin and his older brother? Only time will tell, but one thing's for certain, Muradin kicks some serious arse and has one hell of a story. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching, and a big thank you to Nixxiom and Moocluck for doing an amazing job with the dwarf voices. I could have never done it as well as they did. If you don't know who these guys are, then you're definitely missing out, so I've linked one video of Nixxiom and one video of Moocluck on the screen. Under those videos, you can find the links to 2 videos that I've made connected to Muradin's storyline. On the left, we have the story of Falstad Wildhammer, while on the right, we have the story of Blackrock Mountain, which also talks about the history of the Dark Iron Dwarves and all that good stuff. Have a great week everyone, subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!